and how long they've been blogging as their introduction. My name is Stacey O'Neill. I have two blogs. Fantasy Book Addict is my website for book reviews and for author interviews and contests and blog tours and all that big stuff. And I do adult and young adult and fantasy and sci-fi mostly. And then I have a second blog because I'm also a writer and a book publicist. So under StaceyO'Neill.com, I write up for stuff related to writers and interviews with literary agents and advice on social media and book publicity and all that good stuff. Oh, and I've been blogging for like 6 years.
Hi, I'm Jen. I blog for two different blogs. My own blog, which is Genuine Cupcakes, and then I also, which I've been doing for 4 years now. And then I also write reviews for Young Adult Book Central by ABC, which is kind of like Goodreads for teenagers. I've been doing that for 2 years.
Talk directly into the mic. So.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I run the Irish Banana Review. I've been blogging for, I think I started in February 2011, and yeah. I mostly review young adult, new adult, some adult, and middle grade, but definitely in their focus.
Hi, I'm Steph Sinclair. I blog for Podwaggery, and it's a blog primarily focused on YA, and it's been up for maybe almost 2 years now.
Hi, I'm Jillian, and I blog for readloveblog.com. And I've been blogging probably for 2 years on my own for almost a year. And I will read anything that I feel like reading.
Hi, I'm Joy Harris, and I own Joyful Review, and it's about 8 years that I've been doing it, and I have a series of reviewers. I guess it's blogging now, but I have a series of reviewers, and we also blog romance.
Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about how you build your blog and your brand and that readership that's so important. So how do you go about doing that? Is it social media, marketing? What do you do to do that? You can go down the line if you want, but just talk directly into the microphone. It's the best way to...
In terms of I'm very heavy on social media, especially Twitter and Facebook, and more recently I'm getting into Pinterest just because it's so much fun. But in terms of growing the readership, the main thing to remember is content is king. So the more that you're posting original stuff, not stuff that you're pasting from other people's blogs, but stuff that you create yourself, the more people you're going to get to come back and check out and see what you're doing. So that and running contests also doesn't hurt.
One of the things that I started doing was any kind of book signing that I went to, I brought cupcakes, which has helped bringing cupcakes to book signings, author meet and greets, that helped get my name out there as far as authors were concerned. And like Stacey said, big social media, Twitter, Facebook, so just kind of getting yourself out there and being friendly with other bloggers.
Yeah, I think I kind of have to build upon both of that. I mean, you definitely have to be active in social media, and you really have to keep up on content on your blog, not just constantly throwing up book trailers and all this other stuff. You really need to put up reviews, and that's what your blog is there for, it's to review books. So you have to put up the reviews, but like Jen said, you have to be a friendly person. I mean, if you're going around snarky and mean and nasty, who wants to hang out with that person? You're like glaring at me like,
Well, I agree with the others. Definitely social media. I think what really helped me and Kat at the beginning was definitely Goodreads. We definitely, started off with Goodreads together, and then we branched out to our own blog, and Twitter definitely helps, and content. It has to be interesting, it has to be different. Having a feature that is
thing. I mean, social media is always big. Interacting with you guys as well as authors, I think, is big too. I'm not gonna, post something and not want to talk to you guys about it. So I feel like that helps build readership.
I would have to say, be yourself. Be yourself online and offline. You should be the same person. I think social media has helped, but I started before the social media. So my personality basically was what I would say built my blog or built the review site. And you have, I would say, have a little icon or something. And mine is Bunny. This bunny, these ears are known forever for the past 8 years. And have something that stick with it and pretty much try to build upon that. But you have to keep the content should be new. You should try to have something at least, if you're not a daily blog, at least weekly. I think you need to talk about other things on Twitter at least. It shouldn't always be about. But you can bring in we have certain people who will talk about dogs and cats, whatever, to get the people to come to you. And I think it's based on your personality and social media, the two things. And make sure you talk to your readers and remember that you are a romance reader, no matter what, at least in my case, and come from that point of view. So when you're doing your reviews or when you're blogging, be honest but professional.
So when you open your blog, you have to get books, you have to maybe build relationships with publishers, with publicists, with authors. How do you do that if you're just, in your room with your stack of books and your computer and your blogspot?
I started out with NetGalley. You just open up an account and you get approved sometimes and sometimes you don't, and I just started reviewing books. And that's how it came about. And then as people started to come to my website and I got more popular, then I started to approach the publicists directly and from the actual publishing houses and just say, I'd really like to read this book, or I'd really love to be on the blog tour, I'd really like to be on your ARC list. And sometimes they said yes, sometimes they said no, and it just grew from there. And then eventually, when you get big enough, the publishers and the publicists come directly to you.
Yeah, I think I started on NetGalley too, and just posting reviews. And a lot of times, on the back of a book, you get a book. They'll have a link, and just sending a link to my review to that publisher, and then they started. Emailing, asking if I would review certain books. Sometimes they just started showing up at my house, and from there.
We're all kind of building on each other with the answers. What they said is definitely true. I didn't have NetGalley when I first started because I was very much of the ebooks are evil, and you need to go I always have to feel my book to read it. And then you quickly get out of that because to review the new copies, publishers are really pushing for the ebooks. It's so much easier, and it really does save a lot of space in your house too. But you constantly have to keep reading, keep reviewing. That's a big thing. And when you do start asking publishers for books, the best piece of advice I got was don't go for the big titles. Don't ask for the ones that everybody's going to be asking for. Show publishers that you're interested in those smaller, lesser known titles that aren't getting a lot of publicity. That you're willing to be a team player and you're going to review everything, not just the books that are going to be the next bestseller and the next big movie.
Debut authors.
Debut authors are great.
Yeah, I agree. When we first started off, we definitely did NetGalley, and that was very helpful as far as what publishers were seeing that you were willing to review. And sometimes through NetGalley, they would reach out and ask you to participate on a blog tour. I found that the blog tours was what really helped us to get on publisher lists and to maintain the contact. So the only thing that I've definitely learned throughout the experience is don't ask the author directly for an art copy. It's so many things could go wrong.
I will give you one. I'm not too big for my britches, so.
We're all going to count on that one.
So hit up Leah.
I will give it to you.
Everyone needs to grab Leah. Heard her.
If you put the review on Amazon and Goodreads and everywhere, it's yours.
I was the same. I'm NetGalley. Also, I started that way. And then recently, the books started showing up at my house, at my front door, and it was like a little surprise. Every time I come home, I'm like, ooh, there's a book. I don't know where it came from. And so I don't really know how I got on those lists, but it's really pretty awesome. And I get some of my arcs just from knowing authors themselves, and they'll say like, hey, I have a book coming out, and I know that you like my other works. Would you like to review this one beforehand? Which is also really awesome.
I started before, this was about 10 years ago when ebooks were just coming out. I was like, what is an ebook? But mine was built through Reader, being a reader on the Yahoo groups, and actually just, loving books, being respectful of what I did like, asking questions. I would say today you have NetGalley, but you definitely have to make sure that you don't overwhelm yourself with what you're asking. Because the worst thing you can do is to ask for something and not produce. And you have to have it in a timely fashion. And pretty much, if you're consistent, they pretty much all have a certain amount of lists, and that's where you get on it. All of a sudden you just see, how did I get there? Because they look at your content, they look at your list, they look at your social media, they look at how, what is your audience? And if you have that audience, then they will send you the book. That's basically what it is. Or you can ask for the book. And if you don't get it, then that's fine, but at least your name is there and you just continue on. Eventually, you'll get it.
So I have read a few times in various social media venues that there's a difference between book blogging and book reviewing. Do you agree that there is a difference? And if so, which one do you come down on? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll answer. I consider myself a book reviewer. And I say that because when I first started, there were book review sites. And you had a team of reviewers, and they reviewed, and you put it all up under the banner of one name. And that to me is a book review site. And it's kind of, I would say it's almost the same, but blogging I think is more the individual thing. We're personally going to segue into a Drayton Review blog so that we can do different things, but we are going to handle it differently, and we are going to be blogging, which I think is totally different from reviewing. And when I say that, only because how it started, and when I say book reviewer, we review the books, we post a review, and that's it. So not going on about, more than the actual content of the review. Whereas with blogging, you're actually getting more into the review process. You're interacting with your readers more, whereas I interact with my readers through Yahoo groups and through social media.
Yeah, I think it's more like book reviewers, it's just that. You're reviewing a book, which there's plenty of sites that all they do is just book reviews. Blogging it's definitely more the interaction. It's the putting up the book trailers. It's the blog tours where you're doing author interviews and guest posts, and you're recapping book events that you go to. It's focused more on like the book market as a whole, as opposed to just reviewing an individual book.
I think I would consider myself a book blogger because I do a lot more. I do book reviews, but the book reviews are my least favorite part of the aspect. I really like to get online and talk to people and get all giggly about the stuff that I like and recommend stuff and talk about books that are being made into movies. I'm way social, so I guess I would be more of the book blogger.
I kind of consider myself a little bit of both because on my own site, I can say whatever I want. And I try to, when I get a book, I try to stick to the review. When I'm putting it on my site, I can be a little bit more fangirly about, a book boy or whatever. Whereas if I'm posting on YABC, we have different guidelines where we're supposed to be a little more generic about, a little more critical in the sense that we're supposed to kind of remove our own personal feelings about the book. We can still say whether or not we liked it or what didn't work for us, but we are encouraged to keep our personal opinions to our own blogs.
I agree. It's all like smooshed to the same thing. That I'll be totally honest and tell you that covers, like some grab my attention and some don't. I typically don't lean towards the cartoony ones. I just whatever. And then I read the synopsis, and if the synopsis sounds cool, then, you know, whatever. And then there are some authors that I specifically look for that I've read, you know, a bunch of their stuff, and if they've got something on there, I don't even read the synopsis, I just want it.
The question is, how do they
I've
choose
had
which
to
book?
use NetGalley as a reward system because I get a little click happy sometimes. Because you can choose, yeah. And it does, because you just get really excited over all the great books, but I kind of have to, I make myself get through a certain number of review books first, and then I allow myself to go on NetGalley, and I have to limit myself to like 2 or, 10 that I'm going to click on.
I think I mostly use Goodreads to figure out what I want to read next. I mean, NetGalley's great, but typically if I'm on NetGalley, it's because I'm looking for something I saw on Goodreads. The opinions of other bloggers matter to me. Like if someone else read something a month earlier and it's like that I really, like a friend or something that's another blogger, they're like, I love this, then I'm more inclined to read it. It's the same way you'd walk into Barnes & Noble and you see like all these books staring at you. You know what your go-to genre typically is that you like, or whatever you're in the mood to read. And like they said, the authors that you love are the authors that you love. And you're going to read those books no matter what. So
I'm on a NetGalley ban because I have no self-control. So I just try, I try not to go on NetGalley because I know that I'm just going to go like, oh, I must have this, and I'm probably not going to read it. So I have too many print arcs sitting at home, and until that pile decreases, I'm trying to stay away from NetGalley unless an all-time favorite author pops up and I have to have it. Then I'm gone.
It's very easy to become a book hoarder when you're a book blogger. It's addictive.
I think we're all lucky that NetGalley does not have an app. But yeah, same thing. I mean, you kind of go through and do your authors that you normally would go to. I'm a huge cover junkie, so if it's a great cover, I can't stay away. Which is also bad, which is why my to-read list is taller than I am, probably.
Again, I started before NetGalley, so I fought NetGalley for a long time, only because my thing is, if you're reviewing a book and you're doing it, yes, I enjoy reading, but the book itself is your reward. And when you're on NetGalley, a lot of times the book, you have 30 days in order to read it, and then it expires, and so you no longer have anything. So let's say you have a favorite book or you really like it, and then you don't have anything after that. I do like NetGalley because for the prints that I have to mail out and the reviewers that don't mind, they can go into NetGalley to choose something, and the process is easier. I find my books all over. I am a voracious reader. I've been a voracious romance reader for years. The cover will catch me. I will tell you, the cover will catch me. I look for debut authors, and I also look at the blurb, and that pretty much is how I choose.
So, as lovely as you are, sometimes authors are scared of bloggers. It's true. So, knowing that, well, because, a blogger has a huge audience, and if a blogger loves a book, they can help you, and if a blogger hates you, they can not help you. So I put it out to authors, and I said, I'm going to have this panel with bloggers, and so what do you want to ask a blogger? This is completely confidential. What would you want to know? So here are some of the questions that authors anonymously have submitted to. What are the most common mistakes reviewers see authors make?
Goodreads.
We want to know.
Okay, can I just say, because Leah and I were talking about this last night, is that I love it when authors ask me if I want to review their book. The worst thing you can do is when you're, emailing me is put Dear Blogger. Like, if you can't take the time to learn my name, why would I take the time to read your book?
Dear Miss Blogger.
Dear Miss Blogger, Dear Miss Irish Banana, Dear Reviewer, I've gotten Dear Anna, I'm Hannah, Anna, thanks. Sure, Anna's nice.
I got a Dear Sir.
I think it's mostly important just to follow the guidelines. Most bloggers actually have a little tab on their website, usually just says review guidelines, and if they have it on there, read it. and they'll tell you what they want. They'll tell you what they accept. They'll tell you, you know, everything, and then they have a lot of people have a contact form that they want you to use and stuff like that. Just pay attention.
I don't like it when I just get automatically added to a mailing list. So I'm getting all these emails about promotions for a book that I never signed up to receive info about, so it's kind of annoying.
And then you have the moment of panic, like, oh my God, did I sign up for this blog tour and I have no idea what I'm doing? Like, where did this come from? And you're going through your calendar, like, I don't remember emailing for this.
I also don't like to be asked in social media. I hate that. I mean, if you've never talked to me before on social media, don't send me a link to your book and say, hey, you want to read it? Like, that's so annoying. Or go to my Facebook page and post a link to your book on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
I hate that.
I would have to say the two main things, pay attention to where you're submitting to. We are an adult only. I do no YA. I do no YA, and yet I get inundated with YA, which means I know that you haven't looked at the content of my blog, you haven't looked at the guidelines, you don't know anything about me. That's number one. So you're just blindly doing that. Number two, if you're going to submit, don't submit with the book in PDF. I mean, or any form. Send me what I asked for from the. I'm not even that. Even if you don't use the form, don't send me the book, because to me, honestly, that's one of my pet peeves. Don't assume. If I will, then I always send. I will ask you for it when I get a reviewer, because there are tons of books out there. What's going to pick me out? Pick it out is if the person wants to have it or not. So I would have to say don't. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't assume. I'm so sorry. Don't assume that the person is going to actually read the book. And like you're saying, my name would be nice. My name is all over the place. Just you should pay attention to where you're submitting, and that means you're taking your time to research.
I would just like to add one thing to that is I've gotten a lot of, like, on social media or even through Goodreads or whatever, debut authors who will friend me with the sole purpose of asking me to read their book. And I've had like Twitter friendships, so to speak, with debut authors for months before I've ever realized that they're an actual author, because they haven't pushed their book on me. So it's kind of like, don't just friend me just because you want to ask me to read your book. It's like, you know, it's kind of like, get to know me for a little bit. You know, we don't have to be BFFs, but it's like, know my name, know that while I do read some adult books, I don't read erotica, so if you're going to send me that book, I'm definitely not going to read it. You know, so, but don't just friend me just to shove your book in my face.
Yeah, I agree. You can tell sometimes when you'll get followed by an author that their sole purpose is to try to get you to read their book. And sometimes you feel a little used, you know? I mean, bloggers, they do what they do because they love it, and we do it for free, you know?
None of us get paid for it.
We don't get paid.
Blog tour, like they didn't visit you on a blog tour and you just reviewed them. Is it okay to thank a blogger for a review, whether it was a good review or a bad review?
Yes, but if it's a negative review, don't comment on it. Just don't say thank you for the review, because you don't know how that person's going to respond. Not everybody's going to be gracious about it. You don't know. So if you thank them, it's probably best to do it privately or an email.
Even then, be careful, because you get some people who will like go back and be like, "Oh, look what this author just emailed me," and post it everywhere.
As a publicist, I always advise my clients never to comment on negative reviews at all. Never publicly, ever. Like, ever. Don't go on Goodreads. Don't talk to people on Twitter about it, because it gets everywhere. They will blast you everywhere, and they will humiliate you. So, don't. It doesn't matter if you're upset about a review, then write it on a piece of paper and then light it on fire and be done with it. But don't talk about it publicly. As far as being a blogger, I don't really care either way if they thank me, to be honest.
As a review site owner, having a review site, I think it is polite. I still do the notifications to each and every single hundreds of those reviews that come in, and I send them out to the authors. It's very sketchy when you have sort of a negative review, and it depends on the situation, because you learn who not to contact and who let them find it on their own and who to contact. yes, a thank you is definitely wanted, at least in a review, because the person has done that work. And then when it comes to negative reviews, if you don't have anything good to say, then just don't. Because it was when I first started, it almost crushed me. This very huge New York Times best-selling author ripped me a new one in an email. Oh my God. It was like, of all people, I never thought she'd be. I never reviewed another book. I never put it up. Never. But then I've had reviews that weren't so great, and we've always been very positive about the way we put, the negative in it. It said, thank you very much. You were very honest, and I will submit to you in the future because I know that you're honest.
This is why I don't request books straight from authors, because if I dislike the work, I don't want to go back to them like, oh yeah, I don't like your book, but don't click this link on Twitter. I've had that situation before, and I was like, this never, ever, ever, ever again. Yeah, it was super awkward. I was like, look, I didn't love it, but I'm only going to tweet it once, so don't click it. And she read it, and it was just awful. So never again.
Bit of discussion on an author. So, and the discussion was that sometimes authors see a review that says, I didn't think I'd like this book when I started it, but blah, blah, blah. So the question was, do reviewers pick up books that they really don't think they would like? Is one part of the question. And then the other part of the question is there a guilty until proven innocent approach to reviewing? So do you read a book with the mindset that it's good until it proves itself bad, or it's bad until it proves itself good? Or is it none of the above?
None of the above.
I only read books. I always go into it with a positive attitude. I only read books that I think are going to be good, or books that I think that are going to appeal with me, because I want to write a 5-star review for every book. Like I want to love a book so much that I'm taking it all over my house and I won't put it down, and I'm taking it to the bathroom and I'm washing my clothes and I'm holding it in my hand. That's the experience that I want. So yeah, if I don't think I'm gonna like it, like for me personally, I always like a really good romance in my fantasy and my science fiction. So if I know that it's going to be, especially with science fiction, that's going to be light on romance, then I typically won't pick it up, because I know that more than likely it's not going to be something that I'm going to ooh ah about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I typically approach every book as a blank slate. Wow me, don't wow me. Yes, I will say that I've used that I didn't think I was going to like this book, and the only reason I did that is because, I picked up a book thinking I'd enjoy it, and the first chapter or 3 were kind of I'm not sure about this, but then it was you hit that moment, it's oh my gosh, it's amazing, and then you have the carrying it to the bathroom, it's going with you to the laundromat, and you're read this book, it's shoving it in everyone's face, everyone's getting it for Christmas, you just auto order it, it's you got it.
I've picked up books that I didn't think I'd like a character, and then I ended up liking a character, but I don't think I've ever actually picked up a book that I didn't think that I would like. Character, yes, book, not so much, but I'm very much it's going to be good until it proves itself bad. That's just me, though.
For me, it just depends on the book. I mean, if I have an arc that is specifically requested, and then it's getting a whole bunch of negative reviews, I'm going to probably still read it because I requested it, but I have an idea that I might not like it. I mean, sometimes you might see a review for a book and you're just morbidly curious about it. I mean, you just can't help yourself, and maybe the book entertains you in some weird way, but I mean, it just depends. I'm happy to be the black sheep and champion a book that everyone disliked, and I'll be the black sheep that everyone liked the book too.
That happened to me. The reverse is absolutely true. You see this book that everyone's I love this book, I love this book. Every blogger is I need this book, I'll trade you my child for it. and then you get it, and you're I'm gonna love it. You get halfway through, and it's what the heck just happened? Did I get a different copy of this book?
Did they put something in the pages?
Yeah.
I'm oh my god.
Who changed the cover? What
really?
is that?
Well, what I normally say, not that I didn't think that I would like it. I hate first person. I hate first person with a passion. But I will pick up, there are about 6 people that I've actually just picked it up. I've read the blurb. I'm all excited. I open it, I'm like, ugh. First person. But I'll go in, and I love it. One now, Against the Rope from Sarah Castillo. Very good. First person, MMA fighter. But anyway, MMA fighter. But when you pick up something and you say, you know what, it may not be my cup of tea, but I'm looking for something different. I'm a mood reader, so it depends on what mood I'm in as to what I want to read. So I'll say, you know what, I didn't think I would like it. I wouldn't say that. I would say, you know what, it's normally not my cup of tea, but this is what brought me in. So this world, I didn't think that I would like it, but the writing is so fantastic that they brought me over. Now, would I become a convert over to whatever, sci-fi, fantasy, but maybe not. But this particular author, I picked it up and chose it. I go with every book, just like young lady said, blank slate. It's either going to be good or it's going to be bad. If you have the greatest authors who may be slacking and you're just like, oh my goodness, okay, I think maybe.
Things that you see that authors are not maybe doing well. I heard the G word.
Goodreads. There's the G word.
Okay, so there are authors who play on Goodreads, and there are authors who are scared to death of Goodreads and just avoid it like the plague. What, in your opinion, what is an author's role on Goodreads? And if an author is there, how does an author play nice?
I don't think an author has a role on Goodreads.
Agreed.
I think Goodreads is a review website, and people buy books. They have a right to feel however they feel about that review. Once you've bought a book, it's yours. So if you don't like it, you have a right to say that you don't like that book. Just like you have a right to say that you don't like something you bought at Kmart. I mean, it's an opinion. And so I always tell people, the authors, to stay away from Goodreads because, especially if you get your feelings hurt really easily, because no matter what you do in your life, no one's always going to like you. And they don't have to have a reason for not liking you. And it's the same thing with book reviews. There are going to be people who absolutely love your book. There are going to be people who think it's okay. And then there are people who are going to think you're the Antichrist of writing. So that's what I'm saying. You just have to stay away from it. Or have really thick skin.
I don't think you should stay away. I think it's with anything. The internet can allow people to be mean. And that's the bottom line. I think it is everything, Amazon, Goodreads, review sites, Twitter, Facebook. It's an avenue to get your name out there, to get your book recognized. You just have to be very, very careful that you do not engage at all. If there's something that's negative, if there's something that people follow Twitter and they'll pick up the littlest thing and blow it up. You just have to remain professional. You don't have to go in and say anything, but you shouldn't be afraid not to go on Goodreads because it is an avenue for you. That's what it was made for people to find books. That's the bottom line.
I agree with that, but I also think that as bloggers, we also have a responsibility to be human beings. I mean, you have to understand that behind each one of these books, there's a person who bled their heart and soul into this. And I mean, me saying, that was stupid, I hate it, you need to go back to writing school, is basically me walking up and saying, your child is ugly, take it back to the hospital and ask for a new one. I mean, it's literally the same thing. You need to understand that snarky is okay. Snarky, we're all snarky. We all laugh at funny posts or whatever. But there's a really thin line where you go from being snarky and true and backing up what you're saying to just being mean. And that I think that has no place there.
I agree with what Joy said earlier. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. I mean, I was brought up that way, and you're not going to find. If I didn't love a book or even like it, you're not going to see it on my blog. I'm just not going to talk about it. I mean, that's just my way of doing things. Some people don't agree with that, but for me, I just don't think, just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you might love the book and think it's the greatest thing ever. It wasn't for me, so that's my approach on things. And also on Goodreads, just because you delete a post does not mean that it's gone. Screenshots are everywhere, so I agree also that you have to be professional and remember that it's out there for everybody to see. And
I actually won't post a review if I can't give it at least a 3 out of 5 stars. I have that on my website in my guidelines. I read a lot of books. And this is just my personal opinion. I am all about promoting books. So if I read your book and I can't honestly give it a 3 out of 5. I don't even tell people I read it. Like, I just don't even review it. If it's got to be a 3 out of 5, and then I write a review and I put it out there. A lot of people feel differently about that, but like I said, like for me, I just want to talk about books I love, so that's what I do.
I think Goodreads is the Wild Wild West of reviewing.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody. If you do not have thick skin, just do not go on there. Since I started off on Goodreads, it's a lot different. I wasn't blogging at first, and I just was exclusively reviewing for Goodreads. And it's way different from blogging. The reviewers they're your customers. You're going on there for honest consumer feelings. And if you cannot handle those honest feelings, you cannot go on there. Don't comment on the reviews. There are some authors that do it well, though. I mean, there are some, but there are some that do not.
You guys are on the Goodreads topic. I just want to ask if you think one about the new rules about possibly deleting reviews that are bullying, and secondly, the idea of people literally starting campaigns to down authors of books they haven't bought, haven't seen, have seen maybe a sentence about, and those people. I mean, there was an author that didn't publish this summer.
The question was two-part. One, it regards the new rules about Goodreads about whether or not a review will be deprioritized or maybe removed if there's something that is considered not nice about the author personally. And then the second one is, what about giving it a rating that maybe is a lower than a 5-star rating or whatever, a rating before the book actually even comes out. So before anyone's even read it, what are your thoughts about rating a book before anyone can pass any judgment about it?
I personally, whether it's books or anything else, I think I look like a fool if I have an opinion about something that I know nothing about. Whether it's a book, okay, a good example is when 50 Shades of Grey got really popular last year. I had a lot of friends of mine, people who were in book clubs and things, coming to me because they knew I was a book reviewer, and they were asking me if I read the book. And I said, no, I hadn't read the book. And so I was on Facebook one day, and a friend of mine had made a derogatory comment about the book. And I literally watched, within 5 minutes' time, 50 comments, this argument that had started about this book. So, and my first instinct was to jump in and have an opinion about that. And I thought, you know what, I'll look really stupid if I have an opinion about something. I don't even know what this book is about, So I read it, and then I could have an informed opinion. It frustrates me for authors' sakes when I see, if the book hasn't even come out, and they're a debut author especially, and people have marked that, they're never going to read this book, it already sucks, or whatever. It's like, that to me, personally, is just, it's not cool. If you haven't read the book, you don't know. If you have read the book and you don't like it, then that's fine. I also think there is a distinct difference between not liking something and being a bully. Just saying that you don't like something does not make you a bully. And I think that, in my opinion, Goodreads has kind of blanket statement, it's on this blanket statement of anybody that gives a negative review is an automatic bully. And I personally don't agree with that. I have moved I'm in the process of moving all of my stuff over to book clubs as a result. Because I just don't think and I don't post negative reviews. But I think that you should be allowed to say how you feel about a book, but at the same time, you should have read that book before you have an opinion. That's just me.
I don't really like the new policy because I feel like Goodreads trying to handle one small problem, like they wanted with a shotgun, and it doesn't really make any sense because their existing policy already covered bullying. If there was something wrong with a review, you could flag it, they would delete it. So now, what's the need for deleting reviews that were never even on the book page to begin with? They already had the part where they would hide the review if they didn't feel that it contributed to the book page. Why do we need to delete them now? No one can see them, So I do think that some reviewers on Goodreads, some users on Goodreads do go too far. Some of the shelf names are a little outrageous. In the case of Lauren Pippa, I think that whole situation boils down to poor journalism on a lot of different outlets because there was no rape shelf. It never existed. That's why there are no screenshots of it. And she even backtracked on her story and said, you know, it was a mistake, it was a misunderstanding. But by that point, too many people had ran with what she originally said. So I do think, yeah, that some shelves do not need to exist. You know, Goodreads needs to handle that. But their new policy is just, it's too general.